The greatest illusion a man has is thinking he's in control just because he speaks loudly, makes quick decisions, or doesn't take disrespect home. The world admires this kind of posture, confuses impulsiveness with courage, confuses shouting with strength, confuses immediate response with a striking personality. But behind many men who don't take disrespect home, what exists isn't power. It's lack of control. Because in the end, a man who doesn't control himself will always end up controlled by something, by anger, by neediness, by vanity, by fear, by pride, by the need to prove something to someone. The most forgotten battlefield is within. The wars that truly define a man's life are not the ones he faces against others, but the ones he faces against his own impulse. It is there, in those seconds between what he feels and what he does, that the type of man he will be is decided. Epictetus said, "No one is free until he masters himself." And if you observe with sincerity, you will realize that a large part of your pain came exactly from this point. Moments in which you did not master yourself. How many times have you said something you didn't want to, just because you were angry? How many times have you made a financial decision in the heat of the moment, and then spent months regretting it? How many times have you destroyed important moments by not being able to hold back a reaction? How many times have you promised that next time will be different, but when the time came, repeated the same pattern? This video is a map to get out of this cycle. Today you will see the 6 levels of self-control, from the state in which you live in reflex, dominated by automatic impulse, to the point where you command your own silence, your own response time, your own energy. You will not only understand the levels, in each of them you will see practical ways to advance, how to perceive the impulse, how to create space between feeling and acting, how to redirect energy, how to use routine to your advantage, how to transform control into naturalness, and in the end, how to become that type of man who doesn't need to impose himself because his own presence already transmits inner mastery. I want you to stay with me until the end. In some of these levels, you will recognize yourself. In another, you will see where you need to go. In another, you will find exactly what was missing to stop repeating the same story. Before continuing, let me ask you for something simple. If this topic resonates with you, if you feel that many times you lose control and regret it later, subscribe to the channel. Here I deliver content made for men who want to mature for real, without fantasy, without ready-made phrases, without empty motivation. And tell me in the comments your city and your age, and if you believe that today you have control over your reactions, or if you feel that you could be much more in control of yourself. Now take a deep breath. The battlefield is within, and that's where we're going to enter now. Level 1, automatic impulse. The first level is the most common and the most dangerous. It is the state in which the man lives in reflex mode. He feels, reacts, regrets. He feels, reacts, regrets. And this cycle repeats so many times that at some point he begins to believe that it's just like that this is his way, that he's always been explosive, that he doesn't take disrespect home. He uses his own lack of control as identity and calls it a strong personality. In automatic impulse, the body responds before the mind. Anger rises and the mouth shoots off. Fear appears and he flees or attacks. The ego feels threatened and he needs to prove something. The mind hardly participates in the process. It is just a late spectator who arrives after the confusion and asks, "Why did I do that?" It's like driving a car at high speed without holding the steering wheel. Sooner or later, you're going to crash. Think of the classic traffic scene. Someone cuts you off. In milliseconds, you're already cursing, accelerating, tailgating the person's car, returning the gesture, fueling an idiotic war that ends with a racing heart, a tense body, and a ruined day. If you had stopped to think, you would have realized that nothing there was worth your energy. But the impulse, comes before the thought. Or imagine that common argument with someone close. The person says something that hurts you. Instead of breathing, understanding the context, filtering the words, you return with an even harsher phrase. Soon the two have already said things that cannot be unsaid. And all this started because no one could hold back the first 5 seconds. Automatic impulse makes you vulnerable. Anyone who learns your triggers gains control over you. Just provoke you at the right points, at the right times, in the right way, and you react. Someone who knows what gets on your nerves is someone who, if they want to, manipulates you easily. But here, there is already a first practical step to get out of this level. You need to start seeing your patterns, not to blame yourself, but to map them. In which situations do you lose control the most? With which people does this happen more often? At what times of the day? Under what emotions? What did you eat, sleep, do before? Self-control begins with self-knowledge. A simple exercise. For a few days, every time you catch yourself reacting automatically, write it down afterwards. It doesn't have to be a long text. Write the situation, what you felt, what you did, and how you felt afterwards. This impulse diary will start to show you that you don't explode out of nowhere. There are patterns, and when you start to see patterns, the impulse ceases to be totally automatic. That's where the second level is born. Level 2, the birth of consciousness. The second level is the birth of consciousness. It is when, for the first time, you realize that there is an interval between what you feel and what you do, and that this interval can be expanded. It is here that you discover that the first victory of self-control is not a beautiful answer, nor a perfect argument. It is silence. It is the pause. It is the breath that comes in, the breath that goes out, and that small space in which you see the impulse forming from within. For the first time, you feel the anger rising, but you don't respond right away. You feel the urge to poke someone, but you hold back. You feel the desire to send that message in the heat of the moment, but you leave the cell phone aside for a few minutes. The body is ready to react, but the mind begins to appear saying, "Wait." Consciousness is born in the body, not in theory. It is when you notice the racing heart, the hand clenching, the jaw tightening, the thought firing. Instead of acting with this entire package, you observe. It's as if one part of you was inside the reaction and another was outside, seeing everything. Here, a simple exercise can change your life. When you feel you're about to react, do 3 things. First, notice your body. Where is the tension? In the chest, in the neck, in the belly? Second, take 3 deep breaths, filling your lungs and releasing slowly. Third, say to yourself in thought, "I'm not obliged to respond now." These 3 steps build a small wall between you and the impulse. The emotion is still there, but it no longer drives alone. And it is exactly this pause that opens space for better choices. Another powerful practice is rapid physical distancing. If the situation allows, leave the environment for a few minutes. Go to the bathroom, drink water, walk a few meters. Sometimes the simple act of taking the body out of the scene reduces the emotional load enough for the mind to come into play. The man who moves away a little is not a coward. Often he is just someone who decided not to hand himself over on a platter to his own impulse. Over time, you realize something curious. Many situations that previously seemed to require an immediate response, in fact, require no response at all. You learn that not every provocation is a call to battle. And when this perception begins to get strong, you enter the third level. Level 3, focus on what matters. Self-control is not just about holding back impulses. It's about redirecting them. The third level is when you stop wasting energy reacting to everything and start acting with purpose. It is here that you learn to separate what deserves your attention from what is just noise. It is when you stop being tossed around by life and start choosing where you step. In the previous level, you learned to pause. Now you learn to choose. the question changes. It stops being, "What am I feeling?" and becomes, "Does this deserve my energy?" When someone provokes you, you no longer ask, "How can I respond in kind?" but "Is it worth getting into this?" When a useless discussion arises, you don't ask yourself, "How can I win this argument back?" but "What do I gain by investing my time here?" Controlling is not repressing, it's directing. The energy you waste on discussions, on responses, on petty revenge, on silly competitions, could be being used to strengthen your body, your work, your projects, your money, your faith, your peace. The man who learns this begins to look at anger in another way, no longer as an enemy, but as raw energy that needs to be channeled into something useful. Here come some practical ways. One of them is the rule of substitution. Every time you feel like exploding, try to transform that into productive action. If something has deeply irritated you, go train. Take a longer walk. Write. Organize something. Work on something you've been putting off. The goal is to teach your brain that strong emotion is not synonymous with destruction, but with construction. Another practice is the rule of priorities. Every day, before you start, choose 2 or 3 things that really matter that day. Things that, if done, will make you feel that the day was worth it. When situations arise, ask yourself, does this help my priorities or just steal energy from them? Whoever has clarity of what matters wastes less control with what is worthless. The Stoics talked about choosing your wars. It's not cowardice, it's intelligence. Because a man who tries to fight against everything, with everyone all the time, ends up defeated in the worst possible way, tired, empty, and without direction. The man who has focus on what matters, on the other hand, begins to save energy, save words, save reactions. He doesn't get involved in any conflict, he measures the cost. And in the process, he gets lighter inside. When you learn to focus like this, you realize that you need something more: structure. It is not enough just to decide where to put your energy. You need an internal and external environment that helps you sustain these decisions. That's where the 4th level comes in. Level 4, the power of routine. Many people think that self-control is a matter of willpower, as if it were enough to be determined enough to endure anything. But whoever lives like this, by force, always loses. Because no one sustains eternal resistance based on pure effort. Real self-control is not born only from strength, it is born from structure. And the simplest way to build this is through routine. The right routine doesn't imprison you, it protects you. It creates a stable ground so that you don't depend on the mood of the day, the emotion of the moment, the sudden will. When you organize your sleep, food, work, rest, and leisure schedules, you reduce the number of decisions you need to make under pressure. And the fewer decisions in the heat of the moment, the less chance of losing control. A man who sleeps poorly, eats anything, never rests his mind, lives late and run over by tasks, is in a permanent state of emotional vulnerability. He doesn't lose control because he is weak. He loses because he is constantly exhausted, and no one with an exhausted body and mind can react well to provocation, pressure, or unforeseen events. Here, the practical way is direct. Start small. Set a minimum time to sleep and wake up that you meet most days. It doesn't have to be perfect, it needs to be more stable than today. Create a mini morning ritual that prepares your brain for the day. A few minutes of silence, a short reading, a stretch, a coffee taken calmly. Also create a mini night ritual to slow down. Reduce screens, breathe, mentally review the day. Also look at your diet. It's not about becoming an athlete, but about stopping living on junk and caffeine. An inflamed, heavy and poorly nourished body has more difficulty dealing with stress. And without realizing it, what you call difficult genius is often just physical dysregulation. Ask yourself, what in me still changes as the day changes? If on a good day you are a calm man, But on a bad day, you become someone unrecognizable. It is a sign that structure is lacking. The more solid your routine, the less oscillation there is between yourself of good days and yourself of bad days. Over time, the routine will do something powerful. It will make self-control a reflex, not an effort. You start to react better without having to think so much about it. And when you get to this point, you are ready to enter the fifth level. Level 5, Inner Mastery. The fifth level is when self-control ceases to be a difficult task and becomes a natural part of who you are. It doesn't mean you never feel anger, fear, or the urge to explode again. It means that even feeling all this, you still own the key. Nothing enters or leaves without passing through your decision. Here, you command what you feel, in the sense of understanding and directing. Decide what you think, in the sense of choosing which thoughts you feed and which you let go. Choose when to act, in the sense of not being dragged into wars that are not worth it. A powerful exercise at this level is what we can call reaction fasting. Choose for a few days specific situations in which you commit to not reacting immediately. For example, any message that irritates you, you only respond after 20 minutes. Any criticism, you only comment after reflecting. Any misunderstanding, you clarify calmly at another time. Another practical way is conscious exposure. If you already know what your strongest triggers are, start exposing yourself to them gradually with the goal of observing yourself. It can be a conversation with someone difficult, an environment that made you tense, a situation that used to throw you off. Go there as an observer. Notice your body, your mind, your reactions. Make a commitment to get through the situation without losing your tone of voice, without raising your emotion, without going out of line. Every time you succeed, you will be neurologically reinforcing the message, "I am in command." It is here that Epictetus's phrase gains flesh. The man who masters himself is more powerful than the one who conquers a city. Because at this level, no one else drives you from the outside. They can try to humiliate you, provoke you, manipulate you, challenge you. You continue to be you, continue choosing, continue lucid. Inner mastery is not perfection. There will still be moments when you lose control, make mistakes, go off the rails. The difference is that you notice quickly, correct the course, and take this error as information, not as identity. You no longer define yourself by the failure. You define yourself by the axis. It is here that self-control ceases to be an attempt to hold everything and becomes a state of internal order. And it is from this state that the most silently powerful figure of all is born, the Invisible King. The Invisible King does not wear a crown, does not demand a throne, does not need applause. He governs the only territory that really matters, himself. He is the man who went through the automatic impulse, who learned to pause, who redirected the energy, who built routine, who achieved inner mastery. He can work anywhere, have any position, live in any context. Wherever he is, he carries with him a type of authority that cannot be bought. This man doesn't need to prove he's strong. Strength appears in the way he responds. He doesn't need to say he's calm. Calm is in the look, in the tone of voice, in the gestures. He doesn't need to convince anyone that he is mature. Maturity is in how he deals with conflicts, losses, frustrations, and praise. He knows that true power is not in controlling the world, but in silencing his own chaos. Look at the 6 levels we went through. From the automatic impulse, in which you were dragged by any emotion, to the inner mastery, in which you feel everything, but respond as master of yourself. This journey is not fast nor glamorous. It is made of small choices, small silences, small pauses, small daily victories over what before dominated you. Self-control is not repression. It's not swallowing everything, pretending you don't feel, turning to stone. Self-control is internal sovereignty. It is you being present within yourself, choosing when to speak, when to be silent, when to enter, when to leave, when to insist, when to let go. It is knowing that in any scenario, the final decision on how you will behave is still yours. If this script made sense to you, if you saw yourself in any of these levels, if any part poked your conscience in a different way, subscribe to the channel. Here, the idea is not to make you comfortable, it is to make you more aware, stronger, more lucid. And, in the comments, leave the word control. Not as an ornament, but as a silent commitment to the journey you choose to deepen from today, the journey of being an invisible king, someone who governs himself even when no one is watching.